is CNN Headline News. You're in tune with the world.
President Reagan says that papers obtained from the Carter White House did not give him an advantage. Good morning. I'm Jim Wilkerson.
And I'm Bobby Batista. President Reagan says any papers that his campaign staff got from the Carter White House in 1980 were not a factor in his debate that year with Mr. Carter. In a news conference last night, the president said he wasn't even aware of the Carter papers until recent news reports disclosed them. But while answering questions, the president sidestepped one put to him by ABC correspondent Sam Donaldson.
Does it matter if it was stolen, whether it was sensitive or not?
Is it stolen if someone hands it to you, some disgruntled individual hands to another counterpart in a campaign organization? We don't know how it was obtained.
Is it still? Sir,
That's too bad.
Because you just asked. What is your answer to that?
What?
Sir, you just asked a question. What is your answer to that?
What is my answer to this?
If it is.
Well, my answer is that it probably wasn't too much different from the press rushing into print with the Pentagon papers, which were stolen, and they were classified, and it was against the law. Now, I want the Justice Department to find out if anybody did anything that broke the law.
Also at last night's news conference, President Reagan said the administration is changing its forecast to show an even stronger economic recovery this year, and he also said he'll consider lifting some sanctions against Poland if that government allows the formation of a free union.
President Reagan will make yet another trip today to Stump for Education. In less than an hour, Mr. Reagan is set to leave for Louisville, Kentucky, where he will look in on the United States Skill Olympics. He will then move on to Kansas City for an address to the National Association of Student Councils.
Utah Senator Orrin Hatch says that the narrow defeat of the anti-abortion amendment in the Senate, quote, sends a message to the courts and the country that this is still an issue that has to be resolved. Hatch was sponsor of the amendment, which would have given Congress and the states the power to regulate abortions. About 1.5 to 2 million abortions are performed each year in the United States.
The Supreme Court has ruled that a life sentence with no chance of parole is cruel and unusual punishment for a man who wrote a $100 bad check. By a 5-4 margin, the justices thus overturned the 1978 life sentence of a South Dakota man. The inmate, Jerry Buckley Helm, had a history of writing bad checks. Helms was obviously relieved but was angry the case had to go as far as the high court.
If they're going to sentence somebody to a life sentence as a habitual offender or nonviolent crime, I feel they should have a possibility of parole down the line. You know, you see so many people commit violent crimes. This is what bothered me a lot in here. Violent crimes, you know, and they come in with a few years. It makes me bitter.
Well, as he wrapped up his visit to Bangkok, Thailand, Secretary of State George Shultz said that the United States will support the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. The group is calling for the withdrawal of all Vietnamese troops from Cambodia. Meanwhile, the Pentagon says the remains of 8 Americans returned from Vietnam this month have now been identified. But as CNN's Charles Bierbauer reports, the State Department feels the Vietnamese know more than they're telling.
The Defense Department says there are still 2,491 Americans unaccounted for since the war in Southeast Asia. The number declines only slowly as from time to time the Vietnamese hand over the remains of U.S. servicemen. On June 3rd, the remains of 9 Americans were repatriated. 8 of those have now been identified. The U.S. is asking Vietnam for more information on the 9th set of remains before confirming an identity. In addition, documents were handed over identifying 3 other Americans missing in action. State Department spokesman Alan Romberg, however, indicates that the Vietnamese are telling only a fraction of what they might.
That there are credible reports, very credible reports, indicating the Vietnamese know more about missing Americans than they've been willing to tell us.
Officials traveling with Secretary Shultz say the U.S. believes the remains of 400 Americans are in a morgue in Hanoi. That was the story told by a mortician who fled to the West in 1979. Defense Department officials say the mortician was a credible witness. But when members of the League of Families of MIAs and POWs visited the alleged morgue in Hanoi in 1982, they found it was only a dusty morgue for Vietnamese films. While the remains of American servicemen occasionally return, no live American has been found in Southeast Asia. The administration has repeatedly said it will make every effort to free such Americans if a sighting is ever confirmed. Charles Bierbauer, CNN, Washington.
This is CNN Headline News.
The Space Shuttle Challenger left Texas this morning for Florida, where it'll be ready for another flight set for the end of August. The shuttle, attached to a modified 747 jetliner, had been forced to land in South Texas because of thunderstorms. The shuttle flight set for August will feature the first night launch and landing.
Rescue teams from Nevada's Nellis Air Force Base will return to the site of an Air Force C-130 plane crash today. The cargo plane with 6 people on board went down yesterday on a training mission at the base. 5 were killed. The 6th is listed as missing. An Air Force spokesman says the plane was too hot from the resulting fire for them to find the last body.
There may be new life for the B-1 bomber. The Senate Armed Services Committee has voted to restore nearly $889 million in funding for the long-range bomber. The vote was along party lines and came after White House budget officials said that a recalculated inflation rate makes more money available, but Senator Edward Kennedy called that budgetary trickery.
Heavy thunderstorms and flood runoff killed 2 teenagers in Ohio and Pennsylvania yesterday. But in Colorado, the rising floodwaters of the Colorado River have begun to recede, as CNN's Ann McDermott reports. At one point, the Colorado River level climbed to 14 feet, a record high. It spilled into the flatlands over a stretch of Interstate 70, then surged through a small earthen dam and flooded about a dozen homes. More than 1,000 people had to be evacuated, some of whom stayed at temporary Red Cross shelters. But now officials believe the waters are receding and people are being allowed to go home. Lieutenant Governor Nancy Dick toured the area by helicopter and sounded optimistic.
My first reaction is that I'm pleased that the damage wasn't as severe as I was afraid it might have been. And since the river has started to fall, if that continues, then I think we'll probably come out in a reasonably fortunate state.
It all began in the mountains, where there was a record snowfall this year. When it melted, the water overflowed bulging reservoirs, prompting government officials to release some of that water from a series of dams, which only added to the flooding problems. That angered some who felt the flooding might have been avoided if the water release was done earlier. Officials with the Bureau of Reclamation admitted they did make a mistake in not predicting the heavy flooding, but they maintained this year's unusual weather conditions of late spring snow and early summer heat combined to throw their calculations way off. Still, although the town remains under a state of emergency, the worst seems to be over, and locals are beginning the job of cleaning up and seeing that life gets back to normal. This is Ann McDermott, CNN, by the Colorado River in Grand Junction, Colorado.
You're in tune with the world.
Name the $12 billion financial services company that created these deals. It's the company that made a $60 million commitment to Scott Paper, a $38 million conversion loan for Shelter Creek Condominium, a $51 million guideline lease for Southwest Gas, and thousands of other deals last year alone. That company is General Electric Credit Corporation. General Electric Credit Corporation, creating money for business. Call us.
Sally, what happened? Oh, strained my back. I know what'll help. Doan's pills.
Good advice. Doan's pills for simple muscular backache pain due to overexertion, stress, or strain. Doan's pills contain magnesium salicylate, a painkiller found in no other leading analgesic, for relief of minor muscular backache pain for hours.
Just dropped by to see how your back feels. Good enough to fold sheets. Thanks to taking Doan's pills.
Doan's pills. Use only as directed.
She came right out and told me my teeth were yellow from smoking.
I didn't want to embarrass him, but he did get the Topol.
When smoke from one cigarette can leave a stain like this, imagine what a pack a day can do to your teeth. Topol is formulated to help remove ugly yellow tobacco stains, yet Topol cleans gently enough to be used every day.
Topol is kind of expensive compared to regular toothpaste.
Oh, but compared to what cigarettes cost.
Your teeth are so much brighter now.
Yeah.
Topol, smoker's tooth polish.
I was overweight and looked terrible, but AIDS helped me lose 46 pounds. The AIDS diet plan helped me lose 28 pounds.
AIDS helps control your appetite so you lose weight, yet AIDS lets you taste, chew, and enjoy. And the appetite suppressant in AIDS is not a stimulant.
AIDS helped me to lose 18 pounds, and it doesn't contain anything to make me nervous.
Question, why take diet pills when you can enjoy AIDS? AIDS helps you lose weight without making you jittery.
Officials of the First California School District to consider filing bankruptcy say that others could follow in their footsteps. Trustees of the San Jose School District voted last night to file for bankruptcy, saying that they can't afford to pay $3.5 million promised in raises and benefits. The city's largest school district will file a petition Thursday under the Federal Bankruptcy Act.
In Livermore, California, more than 700 jailed protesters have refused a judge's offer of either a $500 fine or 2 years probation. The protesters were arrested early last week for blocking the gates of a nuclear weapons research center. Many of them objected to the probation because they said it would prevent them from taking part in other demonstrations. The protesters have taken the matter to Superior Court in an effort to get the penalties reduced.
Efforts to save the area around the Stringfellow toxic waste dump site in California are now underway. But as CNN's Phil Brady reports, the problem is a complicated one.
It was a model dump, at least government engineering tests at the time said it was. That was in 1956. That's when hundreds of companies started dumping toxic waste at the Stringfellow acid pits. All kinds of toxic waste, mostly liquid, that settled on what was believed to be a solid granite floor beneath the dump.
In 1969, seepage was found outside the pits. That's because the pit's solid granite floor wasn't solid at all. It was cracked, and it always had been.
Still, 5 more years passed before Stringfellow was closed. That's because state officials at the time did not consider the seepage serious. They were wrong.
Well, Stringfellow, the state feels, is a very serious problem. It's the state's #1 priority Superfund site, and we're trying to deal with it.
Stan Filippi and other officials are confronting a poisonous plume of water, fed and driven by runoffs passing through Stringfellow, headed straight toward a basin supplying drinking water to 50,000 people. If it isn't stopped, the poisons will infect the basin in 5 years.
It's much like having a gun aimed at you, and you see them pull the trigger, and you see that bullet coming at you very slowly, kind of in slow motion, and you keep yelling at people that something's happening, you've got to start paying attention, and nobody listens.
If anyone's listening now, it's because Penny Newman, who lives in the path of the plume, has rallied hundreds of others to get government officials to act. Pumping out the plume is now underway, and $10 million in EPA money is due soon. Still,
it is very difficult under the ground to know exactly what's going on.
Larry McReynolds is an expert on dealing with water plumes, and Stringfellow's poisoned one won't be easy to handle.
On a landfill that has a seepage problem like Stringfellow, unless you remove the landfill or are very successful in capping it to keep water from getting into it, the way you're doing now is pumping the plume to keep it from getting into the aquifer. That'll go on for decades, really.
Yet, can the poisons be stopped? Again, Stan Filippi.
That's a tough question to ask, obviously. It's something that the geologists will have to give us an answer to.
But Penny Newman's afraid what the answer for her and the others might be.
And I'm afraid before they start dealing with the plume situation seriously, that it's going to take another crisis, which probably means that we'll have the chemicals down in our community.
So stopping the infected plume from spreading won't be easy, if it's possible at all. Experts say it will cost $40 million, maybe more. And getting even some of the companies that dump the toxic waste to pay won't be easy or cheap.
Still, one stark and irrefutable fact remains. The poisonous plume beneath this ground continues to move. The time needed to stop it is running out. I'm Phil Brady, CNN, at the Stringfellow acid pits in Riverside, California.
A Los Angeles television station says escaped mental patient Kevin Cooper may be posing as a woman, but police say the report is only speculation. Cooper is wanted for the slayings of 4 people in Chino, California earlier this month. The bodies of Douglas and Peg Ryan, their 10-year-old daughter, and a neighbor boy were found inside the Ryan home 3 days after Cooper escaped from a nearby prison.
In Texas, self-proclaimed mass murderer Henry Lee Lucas has been charged with the killing of a 5th woman. The 46-year-old Lucas is currently in jail for allegedly stabbing an 80-year-old woman to death. He's also been charged with 3 other murders. Authorities believe Lucas may be responsible for killing up to 20 women between Austin, Texas, and southern Kansas in the past 4 years.
The first of 40 unsettled lawsuits stemming from the collapse of 2 skywalks at Kansas City's Hyatt Regency Hotel has begun. Jurors yesterday heard testimony from Kay Kenton, who wept on the witness stand as she recalled the 1981 disaster that killed 114 people. Ms. Kenton is seeking damages from 7 firms involved in building and operating the hotel.
Investigators looking into the bridge collapse in Greenwich, Connecticut say a pin used to hold sections of that bridge together may have sheared off. 3 people were killed and 3 others critically hurt when the 100-foot span dropped into the river below yesterday. Nearby residents reported hearing strange sounds from that structure in recent weeks. The 25-year-old bridge was inspected less than a year ago and rated in fair condition. Gordon Gilman described the scene just moments after the collapse.
I immediately went to the window, and there was all kinds of flashing lights out here, and I presume from some of the wires that are up in that area. And I looked up, and I saw a truck, and then right after it, a car come right off the end of that bridge over there and go into the water. It was high tide at that time.
Just hours after the bridge collapsed, the highway industry released a report showing nearly half the nation's bridges need to be repaired or replaced. The study by the industry-funded Road Information Program said 45% of the nation's 565,000 bridges are in need of work or replacement. The report also said half the nation's streets and roads need resurfacing and 11% are in need of major reconstruction. The study said states need more money to match increased federal funds for road and bridge repair.
New emergency lighting systems are expected to be part of proposed regulations to improve airline passenger safety. Federal Aviation Administration Chief Lynn Helms told a news conference in New Jersey that serious safety improvements are needed. In addition to lighting changes, Helms will also propose fire-retardant seat fabrics and additives in jet fuel to reduce flare-up if ignited.
More news after this.
An ounce of gold, an ounce of zinc. Which is more important for your good health? Zinc. More precious than gold for good health. Z-Vec is rich in zinc, a mineral essential to bones and red blood cells, plus 6 B-complex vitamins and vitamin C, vitamins your body can't store, plus vitamin E. To make sure you get enough zinc and vitamins in your diet, get Z-Vec, rich in zinc, more precious than gold for good health. Official sponsor of the 1984 U.S. Olympic team.
Now, exclusively from News Center 5, television weather more graphic, more accurate, and with greater speed than ever before possible. And only from News Center 5. Weather Scan, Channel 5's new and exciting visual way of bringing you instantaneous weather information. Now, Channel 5's weather team is developing more detailed, up-to-the-moment weather from computer, radar, and satellite information. Now, see the weather from Weather Scan and News Center 5.
For more than 40 years, the federal government has withheld taxes on wages and salaries. And as of July 1st, banks and other financial institutions are required to withhold 10% on interest and dividend payments. This is not a new tax, and it will not affect income from Social Security. In fact, the majority of older Americans and Social Security recipients may be exempt from this new withholding program. To find out if you qualify, contact your financial institution or the IRS.
You know, reading can be just as exciting as watching TV, sometimes even more. Because a reader is a doer, taking an active part. There's involvement. You're using your imagination. And that's good exercise for a healthy brain. So, Oz about it. Read a book for you.
Oz about it.
CNN keeps you up to date on sports. Here's the latest.
This is Jim Ginocchio, CNN Sports. It's official. 7'4" Ralph Sampson is now a Houston Rocket. The All-American center was the first pick of the NBA draft in New York. Indiana had the second selection and chose Missouri forward Steve Stepanovich. The Rockets also had the third pick and chose Rodney McRae of Louisville. There were also 2 players chosen from the country of Sudan. Oddly enough, one of them is taller than Sampson. His name is Manute Bol. He never played a day of college ball. He was drafted by the San Diego Clippers in the 5th round. Meanwhile, the Phoenix Suns drafted Ed Bona, a forward out of Fordham. In boxing news, world middleweight champion Marvin Hagler signed for a November 4th title defense against Roberto Duran, which could bring each fighter as much as $10 million. The bout will be held in one of 5 places: Miami, Atlantic City, Las Vegas, New York, or Manila. The National League team for the All-Star game was announced. Catching will be Gary Carter of Montreal. At first base, teammate Al Oliver. Second baseman Steve Sachs of the Dodgers. Philadelphia's Mike Schmidt at third. Shortstop is Ozzie Smith of the St. Louis Cardinals. The outfield will feature Andre Dawson and Tim Raines from the Expos. And from Atlanta, Dale Murphy. Murphy's team, the Braves, had their 5-game winning streak come to an end in Atlanta. They lost to the Houston Astros 4-3. The difference was Dickie Thon. He blasted a pair of home runs for the Astros. Around the rest of the National League, Chicago beat Pittsburgh in 11 innings, 8-7. Montreal at Philadelphia was halted by rain in the 11th inning. Both teams were knotted up at 5 apiece. Mets won the first game of a doubleheader over the Cardinals 10-1. St. Louis took the nightcap 8-1. Cincinnati beat the Giants 5-4. Astros over the Braves, as I mentioned, 4-3. And the Dodgers beat the Padres 9-5. American League, Boston 11, Cleveland 3. Baltimore and New York was postponed rain. Tigers 5, Brewers 4. Twins 5, Blue Jays 2. Texas 3, California 1. Oakland 4, Kansas City 3. And Seattle 6, Chicago 2. In London, England, Yvonne Lendl and Chris Lewis advanced to the semifinals of Wimbledon. On the women's side, top seed Martina Navratilova will take on unseeded Yvonne Vermack in the semifinals. The other match will feature 10th seed Billie Jean King against 3rd seed Andrea Jaeger. Jim Ginocchio, CNN Sports.
People in the news, Liza Minnelli and Bianca Jagger won't be able to buy their Halstons at Bergdorf Goodman's New York store anymore. After 20 years of carrying Halston's ready-to-wear clothes, Bergdorf is dropping the line because he licensed his name to JCPenney. Halston began his career in Bergdorf's hat department.
The unemployed father of the Pisner quintuplets says that he's decided not to go back to work. Dan Pisner told a news conference that he'll stay at home and raise his new family, 4 boys and a girl. Pisner is an unemployed consultant. His wife, however, will go back to her job as a secretary for the Food and Drug Administration.
Now for a recap of the hour's top stories, here are the CNN headlines.
President Reagan says he was not aware during the 1980 campaign that his aides had information about Jimmy Carter's re-election strategy. Reagan said last night he wants the Justice Department to find out if any of his aides did anything illegal. Federal officials say more water will have to be released into the Colorado River to ease pressure on 3 dams caused by heavy rains and the melting of heavy snow. At least 5 crew members of an Air Force C-130 cargo plane were killed yesterday when it crashed in Nevada. A 6th person is listed as missing. The San Jose, California School District is filing for bankruptcy. It's the first U.S. public school system to do so in 40 years. A spokesman for a teachers union says the move is an effort by the school board to blackmail teachers into giving up pay raises. And a wide area of Southern California was jolted by a moderate earthquake early this morning. There were no injuries. Those are the headlines. I'm Ed Evans.
The news continues.
It's the familiar flashing game board of Tic-Tac-Dough with TV's handsomest, most knowledgeable quizmaster, Wink Martindale. It's the big money game show that really goes berserk when Wink calls question round winners over for bonus round play. That's where things go sky high and right out of this world on TV's winningest show. Be a part of the fun and excitement. Join Wink and the big winners on Tic-Tac-Dough every day.
Weeknights at 7:30 here on King 5.
There is a place where zebras wander free in the first pink of morning. Giraffes amble slowly into the cool, mute dawn. And lions take the first anxious steps of the prowl. The zoo. It's a jungle out there.
Orders are pouring in for the first high-tech video game that uses live-action animation. Rick Durace has more from Los Angeles.
The arcade industry is a $9 billion a year business that's lately fallen on hard times, but the quarters could be rolling in soon.
Dragon's Lair, a fantasy adventure where you become a valiant knight on a quest to rescue the fair princess from the clutches of an evil dragon.
Dragon's Lair, different from any other game in that it uses live-action animation. You literally play in your own cartoon. The creator is Don Bluth, who once directed several Disney features in the mid-1970s. Last year, Bluth found his own audience with his first animated feature, The Secret of NIMH. It was he and a company called Advanced Microcomputer Systems that invented the game.
Dragon's Lair is the first video interactive arcade game in which a player has to watch it like he would a movie. And as he's watching this movie, about every second or half a second, he has to interact with the controls to keep the movie going.
The game uses a high-resolution laser disc, which, when combined with a computer, lets the player direct the hero through several obstacles in order to save a princess. The picture is about 120 times better than any other game, and that has arcade orders pouring in. But Bluth Animation says they're not only in this for the profit. They see this new video animation technique as a whole new way to train young, talented animators. They also say they could open up a whole new era in video games.
Taking a look at today's national weather forecast, clearing skies will prevail over much of the East Coast, but rain is in store for parts of Pennsylvania and Ohio. Showers and thunderstorms will soak parts of the Midwest, from the eastern plains through the Mississippi Valley. The west will have fair weather, but clouds will linger over the California coast. Highs will reach 80 along the East Coast, and 90s will prevail throughout the Midwest.
For some senior citizens living in the Los Angeles area, there is an alternative to giving up their homes and moving to a nursing home. It's communal living. More from Sam Chulin.
For the 9 residents of Co-op House, life is truly different. These senior citizens each pay $300 a month to live and work together under the same roof. It's an alternative to a retirement or rest home.
There are 9 people participating in this program at this particular location, and the emphasis is on independence.
I wouldn't have had much in Fresno. All I had to do was look at the 4 walls. Here I came down here, and I'm in with a group of people, and got lots of congeniality.
We have to learn to settle our differences, if we have any, even though we're set in our ways. And there's no such thing as human nature not being able to change. I think it can change until your dying day.
The program has been in effect for a little over a year and gotten the attention of the city and other agencies. Janet Wicken, who heads the program sponsoring the Co-op House, says there are other alternatives for other senior citizens.
We match up people to share housing in their own houses and apartments. We've matched up 600 people in the LA area to share in their own houses and apartments. If someone has a 2-bedroom house or apartment and they want to live with someone else and they're relatively flexible and cooperative, they should give us a call.
In the short time we visited Co-op House, we found that these youthful citizens were truly enjoying a new lifestyle, living as if there is truly a tomorrow.
Well, the oldest man in the world, according to the Guinness Book of World Records, is a year older today. Takachiyo Izumi of Japan is observing his 118th birthday today. Izumi lives with relatives, and every day he rises early, takes a walk around his home, and meets with friends before watching television while sipping a traditional Japanese drink.
That's our report for this half hour. I'm Bobby Batista.
And I'm Jim Wilkerson. This is CNN Headline News. You're in tune with the world.